Thank you for joining us for today's session. If you registered for Simplify Nonprofit Operations with Intelligent Workflows in Salesforce, you are in the right place. If not, stay a while. We've got, I think, a pretty cool agenda planned. Our host for today's session, we'll start with Scott. Scott Holra is the founder and managing partner of Venn Technology. He has more than 15 years of experience in the business technology industry, and more specifically in CRM and accounting software solutioning. Scott founded Venn Technology in 2015 to help small businesses get their time and sanity back by integrating systems. So some of you are familiar with us. Welcome back. If you're not, that's a little bit on Scott and Venn. I also happen to know, having worked for Scott for some time now, nonprofits are near and dear to his heart when it makes up a very large portion of our existing client base. So moving on, we are joined today by Zach Pines. Zach runs partnerships at Formstack, which includes 250 or more than 250 technology partners with Salesforce as the largest, and the Salesforce consulting community. Zach has been creating solutions and leading teams in the CRM and marketing automation space for the past 2+ decades. So a lot of experience under his belt there too. So thank you, Zach, for joining us. We also have Justin Jackson from the Formstack team. Justin is responsible for partner enablement, training, and certification at Formstack. He works with a rapidly growing group of Formstack power users who are helping customers create great no-code and low-code solutions for their businesses every single day. So welcome, Justin. Thanks for joining us. And then last and certainly not least, we have Elena Donovan. Elena helps customers create solutions around data collection, document automation, and digital signature. Elena joined Formstack after being a top producing member of the Conga sales team. So thanks again for joining us, you guys. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, Scott.
All right. Thanks for that, Melissa. Really appreciate it. Before we get too far into our discussion here, I think we do have a poll. So Mel, can we throw that up, and maybe while people are responding to that, we'll just do a little kind of conversation here. So I don't think that we have to tell anybody how difficult of a year 2020 was, and how that has really kind of bled over into 2021. And as we were preparing for this webinar, Zach and myself and the rest of the team, we just kind of been talking about what people have been going through. And so I don't know, Zach, why don't you lead off? What are your kind of thoughts? What are the biggest challenges that nonprofits are facing in this kind of hangover from 2020?
All right, man, Scott, that's a huge question. We should probably break that down piece by piece. I would say it reflects the lives we're all facing here in May 2021. So what's going on in the world? Number one, change. That's been true of the past 15 months. It's always true, but more so the past 15 months. So the world around us is changing. We're hopefully coming out of a pandemic that's forced nonprofits as businesses, the people who are our members, our constituents, our donors, into a much more digital world. Interactions are digital and changing at a rapid pace. So I'll pause there, Scott, but I would say rapid change, digital are probably the two big things that are true of every business and nonprofits today. Yeah,
and I think not just the change, but the pace of the changes you mentioned is just so crazy. And it's really interesting too, to see how organizations of all kinds have really adapted to the change, and how some ingenuity has been birthed out of this. Yesterday, I was talking with one of our nonprofit clients up in the Washington, D.C. area. She was talking about how this movie theater near them would let you rent out the whole theater for up to 10 people for $100. Like, they're just trying to change and adapt with the times. And so, I think there's every pocket of the world is having to flex and adjust. So, I mean, from there, how do you see nonprofits better supporting their constituents?
I think actually, and I'm looking at the poll results that Melissa published. One of the phrases there was digital transformation. One of the phrases on this screen here, digital first. So I think being mindful of digital interactions. Justin on the call here, he was kind of joking, not joking, but observing the other day, there was a business that was still asking him to, print out a document, have it signed and scanned and faxed, back in. And he was just pointing out like, man, this is really rough.
Archaic.
This is archaic. This is not how I want to interact with a nonprofit or a business. So I think becoming digital, digital interactions with customers, when someone signs up for a program or an event, is that simple? Is that quick? Is that easy? When I need to collect a signature from a member for a donation or an approval, is that one click? Is that text to sign? Is that one click? So just really treating interactions with everyone that is part of your universe in a very like modern way, in a customer centric way. I think that's again, macro around the pandemic. I think that's like in general one of the good things that's come out of the pandemic and forcing businesses to do that. And I think that's certainly true for nonprofits.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Justin's example of needing to like print and do all this. I printed something this morning, in fact, just before the webinar, and it was the first time I printed something, and I don't even know how long. And trying to remember, wait, which printer is it? Is there even ink in the thing? So, printers I think are going to go the way of the dinosaur at some point. Awesome. Well, so I guess we talked about kind of digital being a huge way to transform that constituent experience. Let's maybe kind of drill down on that a little bit and talk about how does Formstack help improve that member experience? Do you guys want to weigh in on that?
I mean, the way I like to think about that is you want to know, who I am. Again, back to this, I mean, Scott, the industry you're in, and I think you'd probably identify with is, customer relationship management. And it should be all about an individualized, tailored experience. We know who you are. I love this slide that Melissa picked out. Just I see individuals. I see uniqueness. I see unique quality. So when I think as a nonprofit, I'm asking you to fill out a form. I'm asking you to, provide me some information. First and foremost, I want you to know who I am. I want an experience that if you already know information about me, because I provided it to you last year, I'm not resupplying you the same information. Let's pre-fill a form. Let's show who I am. And it's more of a review, verify, update, what's changed. I'm part of a program. I'm now, supplying new information each week as part of that program. I'd love to get an email that is pre-populated with my information, and maybe there's a couple of questions I have to add to it. But don't make it hard for me. Make it personal. Make it so you know who I am. I think that's a principle that kind of every nonprofit could strive for, and that's one of the values that Formstack can help nonprofits achieve.
I kind of chuckled when you were talking about, you should know me, right? I shouldn't have to tell you over and over again who I am. And I was thinking about the last time I went to the doctor and having to fill out, a stack of paperwork this thick. Why do I have to put my name on 15 different places and my address and my phone number? Can I not just give it to you once and you just reference it all the way through? So maybe after we make a little more headway in the nonprofit world, we need to go just revamp the healthcare industry because it's tedious and painful.
As we talk about, well, one of the reasons I feel like everyone listening probably can relate to that. Like we've all been in a situation with a healthcare provider or another type of business where you've had that thought, like, you should already know this about me. Why am I providing this information once again?
Right. Well, and one other thing, as you were talking about it from the constituents' point of view, which is critical. not having to tell you over and over again who they are and not having to input the same thing multiple times. There's also a huge benefit for the team within the nonprofit organization of not having to take that information from here and rekey it, and it really, it's going to help streamline the operations so that people can focus on, you know, the work that they were actually hired to do, not, you know, being a keyboard monkey just banging away at transcribing things from one place to the other.
Such a great point. I mean, again, in the world we're living in, like, time is precious. Everyone's got probably too much that they're being asked to do, especially to support a nonprofit where it may not even be, you know, a full-time job, so to speak. So, and you're actually, like, I'd say, hitting on like the value of Salesforce coupled with Formstack, because Salesforce, the value is single source of data for the nonprofit. You know, we work with, you know, many nonprofit customers, and I'll often ask that question of, like, you know, what was it like before Salesforce? What was it like after Salesforce? And you always hear, like, yeah, we had data in 6 or 7 or 8 different places, lots of manual data entry. Okay, now with Salesforce, we've got it all in one place. Now with Formstack for Salesforce, we can collect that information. We can achieve this kind of know who we are experience to our forms because they're pre-populated based on Salesforce data. Now I know who you are. And then, to your point, once something comes back in, once a you know, a donation form is filled out, once a registration form is filled out, it's all right there in Salesforce. Don't have to do anything. Don't have to think. It's all automated. You could even do things like generate documents off of that information. That's another use case I've been loving. Justin and I had a meeting yesterday, and it's like, hey, we want to collect information and we want to automatically mail this out to somebody. And I don't want to have to think. That's a use case we love. We do that with Formstack forms and Formstack documents. Great use case that we're seeing nonprofits take advantage of.
Yep. Well, and then that's just kind of a brief aside. I love kind of the approach that Formstack has taken. And while there are these very deep hooks into Salesforce, you guys have also come to the table with an API first mentality, and it doesn't really matter what the source of the data is. You've got the ability to interact with it and do some really incredible things. And we at Venn, we're actually starting to see some use cases beyond just Salesforce with that API first doc generation. You know, being able to pull data from all kinds of different places and put documents together. So anyway, kudos to you guys and the approach you've taken.
Well, your team's really innovating really nicely in that area. I've seen your team build like invoice generation out of Sage and Tact, automating that. So that's been awesome. Yeah, I would say Formstack, think of it as like actually 2 really neat technological innovations. One is API first, but the other is native to Salesforce. So
right,
when you're building a form like this, and I think we're going to show it in a little bit, like you're dragging and dropping right in Salesforce. You don't have to be mapping data, syncing fields. When it comes to setting up digital forms, you're doing that right in your Salesforce org through a drag and drop. No code, to use that term that we were talking about, that was part of Justin's profile, but to use no code experience for someone that doesn't need to be a programmer or a web developer or a web designer to build, you know, really effective web forms.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good kind of maybe transition point. And you know, as you're talking about that kind of no code thing, just a quick story about how I got into the Salesforce world. So I've always been a techie, but I couldn't write a line of code to save my life. And after 12 years of working in the Salesforce world, I still can't write a line of code to save my life. And what really attracted me to Salesforce was the fact that you could build all kinds of incredible, powerful tools for an organization without having to be a true developer. And I just love the way that Formstack takes that one step further and allows you to not just work within Salesforce, but really expose things to the outside world and make it all work in harmony. So I guess with that, let me get ready to share my screen, Mel. Thank you very much. All right. Can I get a head nod from a panelist to say that we are seeing the let's volunteer? All right, cool.
Scott, before you go forward, I want to loop in my colleague Elena front and center. She works every day with customers and use case on this form. So I want her to be able to provide some color commentary as you walk through this.
Yeah, jump in.
Thanks,
In fact,
Zach.
I just realized I got logged out here. So you tap dance while I type.
Right on. Well, I can kind of set the stage of what we're going to be walking through if that works. So
yeah,
this use case we're going to go through is, an individual who's going to come and fill out a form to join a campaign event, right? So they're going to come to a contact form, and what's going to happen behind the scenes here is all of that information is going to seamlessly flow into Salesforce in a single click of a button. And then additionally, we're able to automatically kick out a customer-facing document with that form information. So, that user is added to a campaign automatically as a campaign member, and then they're able to sign that document, that waiver, to attend the event. So, Scott, take it away if you want to show that visually.
Yep, sure thing. All right, so here's our form. This form was actually I'm not even gonna say built, it was configured through that drag and drop interface that Zach talked about right from within salesforce.com. We created these fields. We said, hey, this is gonna go to the first name, this is going to the last name, and so forth. And so the context here again is that this is a nonprofit that's putting on this volunteer event. And the first thing we need to do is to get people to sign up. So here we have our super volunteer, and they're signing up for this Venn Day of volunteering. And when they hit submit, let's hop over into Salesforce, and I'm going to refresh my page.
And Scott, I might jump in there too, just to talk a little bit about the different types of forms we see besides just this event registration in this use case. We see a lot of donation forms being gathered, applicants for grantees, contact us information, obviously, signing up for volunteering, a bunch of different elements that we can help out with for that. So this is kind of the part where we're pulling that event information into Salesforce.
Yeah, and one other thing I think it's important to note, and you touched on this, but Formstack is built in such a way that it can push data to any standard or custom object, and even taking that a step further for those that are a little bit more technical on the call, we have the ability within a single form submission to push data to multiple objects. And so here in this case, we didn't just create this contact, but we also added them to this volunteer campaign. So here we have our super volunteer, and we can drill down to the super volunteer contact, and we can see that they've signed up for this Venn Day of volunteering. And you know what? I need to resubmit that form. It's not a demo if something doesn't go right.
And what's excellent there too is that not only can we pull that data in, but as Zach and Scott were talking through earlier, we can also leverage the information already residing in Salesforce. So, they can pull Elena Donovan into the document and, the last time I volunteered and the information they already have on record about me.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so let's hop back over to our campaign. And now we have a sixth volunteer who signed up, who is our cleverly named test volunteer. And again, just like before, we created the contact, we associated them with the campaign. And then because of the nature of this type of event, and we can have all kinds of different scenarios, I was thinking about this demo in the context of like a Habitat for Humanity day where, hey, if we're swinging hammers, we need to get a waiver from you to say, hey, if you get hurt, if you step on a nail, you're not going to sue us. And so leveraging kind of the full Formstack stack, if that's a term, leveraging the full Formstack stack, we have actually automatically rendered a waiver document using that data that was provided from the form, pushed into Salesforce. We've got the participant's name pulled in, we pulled in their birth date, and now when we come in and sign, go ahead and apply and submit. So now we've kind of taken this all the way through the process. They've signed up, we've created their record in Salesforce. We have shown within Salesforce that they are going to volunteer at this event. They've now signed off. That participant gets an executed copy of that agreement with all of the audit trail behind it, that tracking that says, hey, this is genuine. And then really to round things off, when we come back into Salesforce and we look at the contact record, we don't have to go searching down the road to make sure that we've actually got that waiver signed. We've stored it right there as part of their record, giving you that full 360-degree view of what we have done with this particular individual. And so the breadth of the Formstack offering goes well beyond forms and is really able to help operationalize a whole bunch of other aspects of your organization. So Justin, for those people that wanted to print and fax, hopefully they're watching and we can move them into the modern era.
Yeah, and I think too that document piece is super powerful as well. I think a lot of times people think Formstack forms, but the document element is huge. We know nonprofits are really focused on communication with their grantees and donors. So this can go beyond just a waiver, beyond just a signed document. Think, receipts, think welcome letters, think thank you letters. So any type of collateral you guys are using at this time can also be pulled out of Salesforce and into a template.
Yeah, Elena, I'm glad you brought that up because a use case that we see pretty regularly is nonprofits wanting to send end of year donor summaries to their donors so that they can have that information for tax purposes.
Yeah. We've seen other nonprofits, particularly organizations who are foundations or operate like a foundation where they're actually providing outbound funds to another nonprofit. And sometimes in order to actually kick off the funding process, we need you to sign something to certify that you're going to use the funds as we've told you. And then the ability to leverage a Formstack form to get that quarterly report from them to say, hey, yes, here's what we've done, here's our report, and have that flow right back into Salesforce. And then kind of another slightly different use case would be for hiring and onboarding. So here at Venn, we've actually built a recruiting app within our Salesforce system. And when we make somebody an offer, we've got Salesforce records, and I can click a button and generate that offer letter that goes out to them. And then when they sign it, it becomes a part of their employee history within Salesforce. So hopefully, as you've seen this and as we've talked about it, you've kind of expanded your view on the full breadth of what we can do with these tools. It's not just a volunteer sign up tool. It goes well beyond that. You guys have anything to add?
I'm just, I was struck by multiple examples from Justin here and Scott, the efficiency, the time savings. So there's that side of it. And then there's the experience side of it that we talked about earlier. So it helps like both sides of the house, if you will. So definitely opening up my mind as you guys are talking.
Absolutely. Well, very good. Mel, you want to bring the deck back up? There we go. So we've gone through the demo part, and hopefully this has generated some ideas. We would love to open the floor to questions, and so if you've got one, please throw it in the chat, and we will we'll start tackling them. While y'all are typing, just want to call your attention to the fact that you can actually sign up for a free trial of Formstack, and you can either whip out your phone and scan that awesome QR code, or if you like to do it the old-fashioned way, use that little bit.ly, and you can go out to the page where you can get that started.
The QR code is that's a cool touch. Nice.
It doesn't take
Mel's
you to
clever
the
like
restaurant
that.
menu. I know in COVID these days, that's where all the menus are going. So I was hoping there was some familiarity. It does look like we actually did get a question. So I'll present this to the panel. So Zach mentioned full stack in the chat. What does the cost look like for each of those elements and having it integrated with Salesforce?
Yeah, so I'm interpreting that sort of Formstack licensing. I like to point out, think of Formstack as three main modules: digital forms for that data capture, document generation for automating that document, and then digital signature. Some customers, want all three. Other customers, want to start in one, two, or three of those areas. So Formstack, very modular, and also very, I'd say, mindful about the idea of starting small if you need to, or scaling up. So, Formstack projects can be, again, broadly speaking, anywhere from a couple $100 a month to a couple $1,000 a month. Also talking about enterprise customers. So, the pricing will scale up or down depending on use cases. But generally speaking, we have a ton of nonprofit customers, so you're likely going to find a planner package relevant to you. Another thing is Formstack does have a 25% nonprofit discount. I don't even know, Scott and Melissa, if we even talked about that before this webinar, but that's also worth noting is, there's nonprofit discounts that we've got an application form for, of course, that I can share if there's interest.
Awesome. Okay, so we've got a couple more, and these may be somewhat related. So I'll start from the top. So we have participants who have to submit several forms. Can they all be done in one process and pre-fill?
Justin, you want to take that one?
So depending on how you want the experience to be for the end user, pre-filling forms is a very standard thing with Formstack, and so pre-filling Salesforce data is very standard. That's a given that you'll be able to do very easily with Formstack. Now, the experience you want for those users and how they fill them out, if you want that to go from one form, and then after they submit that one, they go to the next form, you can certainly have those redirect and pass data from one form to the next in a couple of different ways. So it's definitely possible. We would just need to talk through what is your expected experience for the end user to configure that the best way.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I mean, Jason, you'll have a ton of flexibility is what it comes down to, depending on how you want to configure that. If you see them as kind of multiple forms, absolutely, as Justin said, you can have one form, a second form, a third form. Nice thing is we're saving all that data to Salesforce. So if at the end of that process, you need to do something with that data, like generate a document, no problem. We can kind of compile all that into one final document at that point or further downstream in the process. Also worth noting, Formstack forms themselves can be configured to have paging. So if the experience is more like you want people to go through like multiple pages in a single user experience, you can do that. Also, conditional logic is configured without code. So oftentimes what we'll find, if you're, say, moving a paper-based process into digital, you can transform the user experience and make it far easier. So if there's, hey, this section shouldn't appear based on this answer, all that can be built in as well. So you're going to have a ton of flexibility versus, yeah, really whatever you want to do. And by the way, if you want to share the forms with us, I don't know if there's an upload feature here in Zoom, but Melissa can give you our contact info. If you want to kind of share the forms, we can kind of give you more specific perspectives on what you may be facing.
Yeah, lots of flexibility. Thanks for the question, Jason and Zach and Justin for helping answer that one. We have another one from Mary. So if a person fills out a form and they already exist in your database, will it search for a match of an existing contact?
So I'll go ahead and take that one. Yes, you absolutely can. That's actually what happened the first time Scott submitted the form. It actually,
I realized that afterward.
yeah, it actually upserted to an existing contact in Salesforce. So that person was already a member of the campaign. So that's why you didn't see another campaign member jump up to 6 until he submitted it the second time. And that's also why the document didn't trigger, because it was based off of new contact being created to send that waiver out, because we don't need to send that waiver back out if an existing contact gets updated, because we've already sent that the waiver to the person. So you can absolutely do that. You can also have it work with multiple different objects. It doesn't have to work with just contact. I could also update an account, maybe a case. You can set that on multiple objects.
Awesome. All right. Can you speak to the breadth of formatting options when building forms and documents?
Zach, you look like you were getting ready to say something.
I was going to tee you up. I was going to say, I mean, I think of you as you're my Formstack documents power user. So you take that first, and then I'll chime in.
Yeah, great question, Brent. What I'll say is you really have all of the flexibility in the world that you need. While the tools do have all of the point and click, drag and drop buttons that you need as I'm not saying you're non-technical, Brent, but I'm just saying a non-technical member who doesn't really know how to use technologies could really learn this very quickly and be able to get what you're looking for from a flexibility standpoint. With that in mind, we also do give you access to do code edits from a low code perspective to be able to, again, take that flexibility even further. So sometimes in forms, we'll see a little bit of use of JavaScript or CSS to make the styling exactly what you want. The formatting of your documents can be, the templates can be in PDFs, Word format. So whatever tool you're most comfortable building that in or configuring it in to get the look and feel that you want, and then uploading it to Formstack is certainly possible. And then again, we do give you the flexibility of those code edits, but it's not required. Most of the use cases that you'll encounter can be done with point and click, drag and drop, configurable experience, as Scott had said, configurable. I love the way you said that. You're not even going to say build, we're going to say configured.
One other thing I was thinking about, I don't know where we found the sample waiver document that we used in our example here, but it probably took the attorney longer to write that waiver than it did to build out that entire process, from creating the form to getting the merge fields to tying it into sign. I mean, we're talking an hour, maybe a little bit longer. And certainly there are going to be things that are more complex that are going to take more time. But this was a fairly low effort creation.
Although, Scott, to be fair, that was an hour for docs. So I'd say like an hour of docs time is probably like 4 hours for like a normal human.
That's true. That's very true.
A couple other thoughts on like the question of Formstack documents, or just like techniques that are used for some of the stuff we're talking about. Like, we can generate documents off of a list view in Salesforce. So the idea that, like, let's say there's some like bulk process that you're trying to automate of, sending letters to a certain type of member or at a certain time, like that's all part of the automation that, that would be possible. Also, there's a concept of like a repeating element. So back to that example Justin gave earlier of, we're doing like an end of year donation form summary. Maybe there's an object in Salesforce that's a list of donations, and all those need to be compiled into one document. Like, that can all be done for you. Venn can help configure that, quite easily.
Good comments.
All right. I am not seeing any more questions coming in, but we will definitely be sure to follow up with the appropriate contact information. Obviously, you can go out to the website. I know from personal experience, Formstack has a ton of great content out on their website, specific to nonprofits, lots of great case studies out there. So be sure to check out their website. And then, of course, on the Venn side of things, if you're a nonprofit running on Salesforce or considering implementing it or need extra customization, we have a whole practice dedicated to that. So we do have also some content out on our website specific around some of the nonprofit use cases as well. So without further ado, thanks again to everyone who joined us, took the time. I want to extend a thanks to our panelists. It was an awesome discussion, and we sincerely hope that you got some value out of the session today. All right.
Yep. Thanks, Mel. Thanks, guys. Thanks for attending.
Yeah, great discussion. That was fun.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.